G'day and welcome again to another Campfire panel discussion. And today, first of all, I have with me Jerome Lamarque, who is a coach and founder at Get Performing for Business Success. How are you, Jerome?
I'm really well, Alan. I've been really looking forward to this discussion since we brought it up. So I'm really looking forward to being on the panel. Never been with Thomas and John before, so I'm really looking forward to that. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, and then we have John Hope, who's a life and business strategist. How are you, John?
None of your business, Alan, but thanks for asking.
If everybody's been wondering, we've been talking before this, and as usual, no common sense coming out of any of us at all. So I'm wondering where this conversation is going to go. And then hopefully bringing some normalcy to the whole program. We've got Thomas Graham, who's a Rima FM radio host. Welcome, Thomas. How are you?
Good. Don't know about the normality, but I'll try my best. So, Jerome, take yourself in because it's going to be a good ride.
Excellent.
I've got a seatbelt on my seat.
Okay. Right. We've been talking about the subject for today, and we talked about imposter syndrome, and what to do if we have it or what to do about it. So, first of all, imposter syndrome is something, and I'll start this off if you like, because imposter syndrome is something that I've suffered from a lot as well. And imposter syndrome is where you don't feel you're good enough at what you're doing. And that can affect the work that we do and hold us back. And what I wanted to do is to open that up further and have each of you explain what you think about imposter syndrome. Again, I think it's time for us all to be honest. Yeah, I've been through it. And I'd like to know whether you're experienced it and if you worked with people who have experienced it as well. And as we go through, we'll describe what it is to each of us. So, Jerome, would you like to start us off from that point?
Yes, throw me in at the deep end. I've definitely been through imposter syndrome and, defining it as self-doubt and low self-confidence in periods of life. And it is defined as an inadequacy that persists despite evidence of series of successes. We still don't think we're good enough. And I think the three main areas that I've suffered in is when I've started a new career, I've done the education, but I haven't had results or enough experience in that area. And I've gone through a phase of that self-doubt, imposter syndrome kind of psychology. And that's been that journey for me. And I've found as I've got more results and as I've got more experience as a fitness coach, working with elite athletes and now working with men in business, as I get more and more results, it seems to leave me less. And preparing for this discussion, I've done a lot more research on it. And so, I'll share that deeper into the session with the guys and the viewers watching. So that's the little bit I can explain from where I am right now.
How about you, John? Have you experienced it yourself, or?
Well, the way I understand it, I haven't experienced it, but my early childhood, where I grew up with a very violent, narcissistic, alcoholic mother who isn't responsible still to this day for what she says or does after 6 o'clock at night. And it can be pretty brutal. So I learnt at a very young age, and I was a very emotional kid. And as you know, Alan, I did martial arts. So I learned to control my emotions through martial arts. And I excelled pretty high. I had an Australian title in fighting, 4th in Taekwondo, and you got to learn to control your emotions. And as a result of coming home to that every night, I was very much in touch with in control of my emotions. I never lost my temper. I didn't have that sort of stuff. I can be aggressive, but it's not a temper thing, which most people do. And one of the courses I did, which was like a $5,000 or $10,000 course on coaching, they drew 2 circles. They drew one circle and then they drew a bigger circle around it. Now, the little circle represented what's going on in your head, who you are to you, all of your thoughts, all of your misconceived things, all of that. Then the bigger circle is what everyone else sees. Now, the distance between that is your emotional growth. Now, if your emotional growth is low, it is very long. And as you say, you've got that identity chase. So it's about your emotional growth to get rid of that. And emotional growth, there's only one way to do it, and that's to experience it. You know, like you've got to, if you've got adversity, you've got to overcome it. So I think where you're saying that was there, but it's your reason to grow. Like it's your, that happens, you've needed to grow. I had to do it at a very young age, which, you know, sure, it was hard at the time, but it's a blessing at the other end because, you know, I grew because of it. So when you're saying that, for me, it's an identification that, okay, I'm here emotionally, I need to grow. You know, whatever it is, like you might, like I know you've said, oh, you had to put on a different face to be speaking because you didn't think you were good enough. But then once you did it, you grew. So it's that little space between the two circles. And when that little circle becomes almost as big as the big circle, well, as a person, you're pretty well rounded. You know, and you've got usually 4 different areas, but there's always more. But you've got spiritual growth, physical growth, emotional growth, and wealth growth. So if you're lacking, and that's the old work circle of life. So if that circle's good, if you're, say, you have a mark out of 1 to 10, if you're a 5 in all of those, well, you're going along all right, but you're only going to go as fast as a 5 will go. But if you want to be a 10, then you might be a 10 in emotional, a 10 in physical, a 10 in spiritual, but you might be a 3 money-wise. Well, the wheel's going to go slow, and then you've got to have growth in the money sort of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, you just identify the areas that you need to grow, so that circle becomes bigger, and then that tire rolls.
And that analogy is a good one, because while that circle is turning, the 10s and 10 and 10 are going well, then you hit the 3 and it slows down. It's like this, so it's like resurging thing all the time. And you realise, God, I'm going through a repeated rhythm.
That's right. But that's your alarm clock to go, well, hang on, I need to fix that part. You know, that's where I need growth. And a lot of it, they don't teach that in schools. Medical corporations thrive on you having problems. That's where they make their money. And they got the biggest sales card, you know, going. They're like, hey, have this pill or you will die. Have this pill or you can't do this. You know, there's no business on the planet that has that sort of pull. But if you can identify it yourself, and people don't want you to identify it yourself, because then you're a lion, you're not a sheep. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's where you come in as coaches, like, you know, Jerome's coach. When you teach people, you're teaching people they're emotional. You can identify an emotional problem, an area they need work, but they've got to do it. You can't do it for them. They've still got to do it.
Yeah. And I think, I don't want to jump over you, Thomas, but it's sort of going on from there. I think the most powerful things when you're helping someone through imposter syndrome or self-doubt, the most powerful way to do it is when they're working with their mentor or their peers, that their mentors and peers tell them that they suffered with it as well, and they doubt themselves at one point. Because people who suffer, say, an 8 or 9 out of 10 with imposter syndrome don't ever think they can ever get there. So one of the things people tend to do, they have heroes, or they put people on pedestals. Now, the moment you do that, you lower yourself in the hierarchy of the animal kingdom, or the human kingdom, or the corporate kingdom, or whatever you want to do.
That's
because
right.
you put CEO or, you know, as Superman and go, I could never be. And I did that with my father a lot, because he was a very successful man, successful author, until he became an alcoholic, and his demise through alcoholism, he demised through alcoholism and living in the past. But I put him on a pedestal, and any kind of man that represented my dad, I had a fear of, I could never get to that. Yeah?
That's
and
it.
At the moment you start now admiring someone or respecting them because of the time and dedication they've put into something, you then know that I can do that. If I put the time and dedication into it, I can get a PhD. I can become a master in that. I can have, you know, all these certificates on the wall if I'm willing to put the time and effort in like they did. The only difference between me and them is they put a lot of focus and time and energy in a certain subject. It doesn't actually make a better performer than me or a better person than me. It's just that I'm respecting their time and dedication and consistency. I'm not putting them on a pedestal or making them out to be a hero.
Mm.
And once we understand, as soon as you look up to someone, it also means you're looking down to someone as well, you know, in quantum physics. If you're thinking that's a hero, well, then you have to have a realization in your non-conscious mind what a hero is not.
Mm.
Yeah.
Then position yourself.
The thing is, if we can sit with kings and talk and sit with tramps and talk, we've actually leveled the playing field and we see no difference. They're just human beings with different attributes.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And gone down different paths. And that's what, you know, when you're working with elite athletes, they can admire their opposition too much because they might be bigger or they might be faster or they might be stronger. Or a business leader that has to go out and public speak, they go, but what if someone asks me a question I don't know? You know, the imposter syndrome can rear its ugly head. And what I want to come back to, Alan, is these discussions that you've created on here and we're having, and men talking about some severe, I mean, what you've just said you've gone through. I haven't gone through that, John. I've had 2 alcoholic fathers, but it wasn't that aggressive. You know, it wasn't that emotional violence. These discussions help people get rid of imposter syndrome because one of the things you do is a lot of people with imposter syndrome think they're the only ones who have it. Yeah? They're the only ones who don't have self-confidence. They feel alone. But by what you're doing here, Alan, is helping people come out of that and go, shit, if I do this and do this, I'm not an imposter because other people struggled as well.
Thank God someone else who said shit on here. I was the only one.
Well, you should hear what some of the ladies have said, or women have said to me. But I'll come back and make a few comments about that. But first of all, Thomas, what are your views on this, you know, coming from a younger age?
Well, Alan,
what is it?
And I've got nothing wrong with me.
What do you call this?
There's many things I could call it, John. But most appropriate for this discussion is it's a mustache.
A mustache?
Mustache.
Hey, feel free. He's already said shit.
There's a line. Let me get some. See the.
Oh, wow! Now I can see it.
The light's going on me.
Okay, John, you behave. Thomas, get back on the subject.
Sorry, mate. Sorry.
Yeah. So now that you've seen my perfect mustache and understand that I'm a perfect person, imposter syndrome is new to me. No, I'm joking. I'm unfortunately, I don't like to say this, but I'm kind of like John in the sense that I've just had to, in my early life, just have to get through it. Like, in other words, I've been thrown in the deep end with my life, and now I can say I'm only 26. But in my short 26 years, I've experienced a lot, and I've had to, as John said, grow up real fast. And so from sexual abuse to one of my parents dying, to broken families, to moving different states and stuff like that. There's a lot that you've just got to put your shoes and socks on and go to work, really, and just try and be someone that isn't clouded by all the past that you've been through, or the negativity, or the shame, or the regret. And so that's, for me, has helped me along the way, because then I became a believer in Jesus as a Christian. And so that helped me to shape really who I am. And so I love this story, and not, I've got to say the right Christian thing here. Not all churches are like this, but my first church that I went to, there was cliques, and every time you'd walk to a certain part of the room, there was a clique, clique or a different clique. And so that, in a sense, was an indication that I had to be someone that I wasn't, because if I had have gone into that clique, I would have had to dress a certain way, I would have had to speak a certain language, I would have had to act a certain way, and would have had to potentially drink certain things. But I wasn't like that. I was someone that although I knew everyone in the auditorium, I was me. Like my whole life, I've just lived a life of just being me. Whether people call that selfish or embarrassing or whatever, I don't really care. Like I'm right at this point in time, I'm happy with where my life is. I'm happy that I've faced the things that I've faced. I'm happy that I've had to make the decisions that I've made in my short 26 years, right? And to keep me, excuse me, to keep me on track, like I do a lot of work with homeless people, right? That right there makes me not be someone that I'm not, because as soon as you walk into a room with 50 homeless people, they're going to know real quick. They've got street smarts and stuff like that. So I think that's, for me, the biggest lesson is I've just had to be comfortable in my own skin. Like despite of what's happened, like I can look in the mirror and say, yep, that's Thomas Graham. And although I'm not perfect, although I want to be, especially with this mustache.
Are you trying to be in disguise at the moment? Are you trying to elude yourself?
I've just got to pull it off. But like, I'm happy to say, like, yeah, okay, I've got some things to work on that the media or people would say is yuck or shameful or judgmental. But I'm happy to look at myself in the mirror. I'm happy to get up and influence the people that I do and do the jobs that I do and stuff like that. So, yeah, like, it's, what can I say? That's what I am and who I am right now.
Yeah. See, when I was younger, I don't think I had imposter syndrome. I went through a lot of stuff and I was out there proving that I was right. So I wasn't doubting who I was proving to everybody else who doubted it. But where my imposter syndrome's come in, it's been when I've been presenting. And I'll put this out to everybody who is trying to do the best by their clients, will always be thinking, am I delivering well enough? And when you can't see what you're delivering, like if I'm doing a talk, for instance, yeah, I can read the people. I get some of them talk, coming after the event and getting in touch with me even, period of time afterwards. But I always wonder, how well did I deliver? And every time I got off the stage, I'd go, oh, that was okay. Never excited about a presentation I did, even up until recently. And I've spent a small fortune in going to speakers' events and going to courses and everything else to improve the way I speak. And people will say, oh, it's great. And I'm going, really? And then recently, the only reason that turned around was for the first time, I'd actually had somebody professionally film the whole thing. And I've looked at the snippets and I went, oh, shit, I did do a good job. I liked watching me. It's the first time and I went, wow. And that imposter syndrome, if you have it, I always think that if you're really focused on your clients and you don't have imposter syndrome, then you're not focused on your clients. Because if you really want to deliver and you're doubting whether, and you're really focused on delivering in a big way, there's going to be a doubt and a question, could I do better? And when you start thinking that, that's when the imposter syndrome slips in. The only people who, and you may not have seen that as imposter syndrome before, but if you are somebody who is narcissistic, doesn't care about the clients, of course, you'll never have imposter syndrome because you're too up yourself. You think you're fantastic.
And they'll be a shit speaker because they don't self-evaluate like you are.
Yeah, and so
like it's actually a tool.
Yeah,
it's something you should embrace. It's not something you should cast aside. Like that's what propels you forward. If you're challenging yourself, that's good. It's when you're not challenging yourself, you don't succeed. You don't get ahead.
As you said, when you realise it's a tool to use in your favour, because there's an upside and downside to everything in life. But when you've got imposter syndrome, you're focusing on the downside of it, not realising, hey, this is a tool, this is a, a guide, a gift to keep you on track and go, okay, I am doing well, as opposed to the person who's narcissistic, who is not using the tool, they just are a tool. They just think they're fantastic at everything, and that's the way they deliver. No.
Yeah, yeah. We've all worked with plenty of tools.
Master tradesman, I would say.
That's where we have our best lessons, I think.
Yeah. But, the conversations here on these things quite often go downhill. I was thinking before when Thomas was talking about his moustache and putting his shoes and socks on to go to work, I'm thinking, well, you got the moustache, you got the shoes and socks, but I hope you put the rest of your clothes on before you go to work.
Well, Alan, I'm a God's gift to this earth. So, be all natural.
Yeah. Well, I said coming up to Christmas, I really want to put a lot of fun into these talks and everything else, and I think we're doing just that. We started out with a conversation before. But so first of all, the thing is that anybody feels they've got imposter syndrome is to stop and, as you said, look at it as being a tool that helps you in guiding you and ask yourself, why do you feel that in the first place? Is it because you just feel insecure, or is it because you really want to deliver to the people that you're working with or that you're providing a service to? If it's that, then be aware that, any coach who coaches you hasn't been through the stuff that you've been through, how can they coach you? So if you've got a great coach, then that coach must have gone through it at some stage or have recognised it in some way and been able to deal with it. So if you've got it, hey, it's great. Just ask yourself, is it because you're feeling insecure? If you don't think you're good enough, then, as they say, get over it. If you're somebody who thinks you're too good, then get over yourself. But if you're somebody who is going, right, I feel it, but why do you feel it? Oh, because I really want to make sure I'm delivering the best possible service. Then, hey, in that point, then great. Find some people who can assess you and look at what you're doing, give you proper feedback and go, yes, you are doing it. In my case, after spending a fortune, it was a video. And I was able to I'm being my own worst enemy. I was able to self-critique myself from being my own worst enemy, look at the video and go, shit, that was pretty good. I like where I presented.
But your emotions put you in that state. So you have positive and negative emotions, and they all come from one or two things, which I've spoken about in LA, and you've seen the video, Alan. Like you've got love and fear. Anything that comes from love, like things you want to do, everything under that banner, you don't have to change it. All the good stuff, your endocrine system's releasing all the good things into your body. You feel good, you're energetic, you can move forward, everything's good. When you got a fear-based one, then that's when it holds you back, and that's when you get stressed. You're in the fight or flight syndrome, and an email can do that in today's society. And you once that's holding you back, you can't do anything. You're stopped. You're a parked car. You're a parked car as long as you want to be a parked car. But when you want to change that, you want to change. Emotions are conscious and subconscious. Feelings are conscious. So when you get a negative emotion, you want to change it into a feeling. Like they say, the old keep the lesson, lose the experience. You're saying looking backwards, get rid of the rear vision mirror. You drive a car, look in the rear vision mirror, you're going to have an accident. The rear vision mirror is small compared to the windscreen. The windscreen's huge. So if you're treating the rear vision mirror the way you should be treating the windscreen, that means you're looking backwards. That means you're living in fear. And you need to change that experience into a positive emotion. I had 20 years in the cops where you go into fatal motor vehicle accidents, doing death messages, like getting shot at. And I had to go through, and as you said, Thomas, religion's a very good thing. They teach this. They teach that prayer is all about forgiveness. It's all about gratitude. It's all about hope, love, all those sort of things. Now, if you apply those to a negative experience, that's when you create a positive feeling. So we're like one of the examples I use is like doing the old death message in the police. And you've got to go and tell someone. And in the small communities, I had to tell people that I knew. And then they would see me in the street. And where I'm a bit of a people person. I love chatting to people, as you can probably imagine. They'd see me and they go, oh, and then you could see the emotion on their face because I brought back that bad experience. And I found that very upsetting. But what I had to do was go, well, hang on. I was professional enough to deal with that situation. I dealt with it properly. I didn't do it slowly like a lot of my colleagues do. I got that person straight on. Like, there's no way of getting rid of that bad message, but I got them as positive as I could, got them to their support network, got everything going, moving forward. And even though it was a bad memory, I could still look at it as a positive feeling for me because I did the best I could for that person in that time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you got to change that emotion into a positive feeling. And we don't teach that as a society, but it's friggin' easy to do. And one thing that fighting taught me, like they don't have what I used to do now. Like when I was 13, I was a brown belt. I was black belt at 14 or 15, around there. At brown belt, you're fighting adults. Full contact, no things. Like if they could hit you, they could hit you. You can't do it anymore because insurance just won't cover it. Now, that's pretty emotional, and you learn to control your emotions very quickly. Now, if we go back in time, all of our ancestors, that was how they were like thrown in the deep end. That's how you learn. We're not thrown in the deep end. We're not taught to emotionally evolve. You know, and because we're not taught to emotionally evolve the hard way, which, you know, I'm not saying that that's the best way, but we don't have anything to go in between that, to bring you up, you know, to teach you. You know, religion does a little bit with prayer and forgiveness and all that. You know, it's great. My presentation I did in LA last month, I left them with 3 questions, which I learned at a coaching thing. What am I grateful for? Every morning I wake up, I ask myself these questions, and I don't just ask it and get a logical answer. I feel it. I feel it through my body. You know, the tingles you get down your spine, down your back, that sort of thing. I feel it. What am I grateful for? Okay. And then I feel it. I go through it and I think, what am I doing? I'll lay there. Then who do I love and who loves me? And I feel that. What am I excited about today? Now, my emotions keep growing because I'm working it out every morning. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm yet to meet someone who hasn't gone through life and had self-doubt somewhere along the line. You know, I've worked with elite athletes and I work with some great business owners. And one of the signs of imposter syndrome is when it's perfectionism. And some of the most successful people in the world have imposter syndrome. That's where they became successful, because they worked and worked and worked because they never felt they were good enough. So they overworked. It cost them their health in the end. It was the other end of the spectrum. So you've got the spectrum where the person doesn't grow because they never think they're good enough. So why make the effort in the first place? And the other end of the spectrum is when someone is really successful, but what was driving them was them not ever feeling good enough. So they had to do more and more and more and more to perceive that they were proving everyone else wrong. And in sports psychology, the 2 drivers are the need to seek approval or the need to avoid rejection. And we look through the eyes of either pessimism or optimism. So it's understanding that imposter syndrome goes right to the top as well. It's not something that's at the base, because you always have the contrast in anything, the extremes. And, you know, working with worked with a CEO years ago, and they couldn't believe the success they had. They go, I actually feel like a fraud. I actually feel I don't know how I've done this. They really self-doubt themselves, and you know, coaching them through that, because we look at our past mistakes and they outweigh the success stories in our mind.
So
and
on that
we create an imbalance there.
So by that, if I think about that, as you're talking about perfection, you're looking at the result at the end. Whereas, John, you're talking about the emotions, which is a journey along the way. So with the journey, you're always moving forward. And so you're seeing results. But when you're looking for perfection at the end, you never see it until you got perfection. And you never see perfection.
You never get perfection.
Keep pushing it away from you.
Yeah. And you keep working hard.
It doesn't matter what success you want or where you want it. The only way you're going to achieve it is you've got to make more mistakes than any other person. Because mistakes are your lessons. Like I got really good at martial arts. I made more mistakes than anyone else. I had my lips didn't form from my teeth getting punched through my lip. Like that was just all scar tissue for about 4 years when I was in my 20s. And it's, you know, but like I said, I had a lot of emotional stuff I had to go through. I was happy to do that. It helped me. You know,
I recognize, I totally agree with that, John. But these people made a lot of mistakes as well. But they're not recognizing their successes. They've made as many mistakes as you have in becoming a black belt or a 12 Dan or whatever. But they've made as many as mistakes. It's what's driving the person beneath that that they don't feel good enough. That's why they have to keep proving it over and over and over again, getting certificates. One of the signs of imposter syndrome is when we overeducate ourselves and we don't take action in our education.
Yeah, self-esteem comes from self.
I did. Well, the quadrant is self-esteem, self-worth, self-confidence, confidence. And when you're working through the athletes with that, you've got to look at that. And I work with the business owners. But when you're looking at someone who doesn't, I've lost my train of talk there. But when you're looking at someone who's doubting themselves and they're not recognizing their wins because they're totally focusing on their losses all the time, there's an imbalance in their thinking. They're deleting, and we distort, delete, and generalize. They're deleting, and it's sometimes recognizing their wins. They have to keep. Well, tell me about that victory, and tell me about that, and tell me how they've made more mistakes than anyone else because they're constantly trying to prove the external world for that recognition because they feel like an imposter, and that's a different thing to success. We might go, wow, they've got a big house, they've got 3 or 4 cars, they've got a yacht. Wow, they are successful. I mean, success is subjective, but they don't feel it. I've worked with guys. I worked with one guy, a multi-millionaire, for 2 years. I was his coach, and he felt like he broke down with me once, and he cried, and he said, "I've always felt like a fraud because I inherited this business from my family. I didn't build it myself, yet I'm getting the credit for it." So imposter syndrome comes in many different ways.
That's it.
And I believe if you don't earn something yourself and you get rewarded for it, you will feel like an imposter. So it's understanding there's many layers to imposter syndrome. And the perfectionism pattern is one of them, and then not getting started and not taking action. Because when I started with as in my sports psychology as a fitness coach, my mentor said to me, there's only 3 things you can master in life you're in control of. One's your psychology, one's your physiology, and one's your craft. That's the only 3 things you can control.
What was the third one?
Your craft.
Craft.
Your craft.
Yeah, what you do.
What you do. Yep.
What you do.
Sorry, I didn't.
And, you're working with. Yeah, so when I'm working with these, I just say now, if are you the fittest you can be? Do you respect your own ecosystem? Okay. Question, conversation there. Are you the most emotional resilience? Are you intellectually the most intelligent in your craft? Is there meaning in your work that you do? And the physical one, is your physical environment set up for success, for you to be organized so you can perform at your peak? I talk about peak performance. They're the only 3 things. So if we're not doing those 3 things at a high level, somewhere along the line, we have to have self-doubt, because it's like a car. If a car's not driving right and it's not humming right, and I say we're going on a road trip, you'll have self-doubt in that car. As an elite athlete and a black belt, if you're not fit and you go into a competition, there will be a form of self-doubt there. You might have a knee injury, and if your opponent knows that you've got a weak knee, we have to have self-doubt around a weakness. It's how we override that and overcome it, and then create strategies either in being offensive or defensive in our thinking.
Absolutely.
So it's more than, and we've got to look, are we growing? Are we constantly growing in all these areas, or are we plateauing? Because as Ray Kroc said, we're either green and growing or ripe and rotting. If we feel we've reached our peak, there's a form of self-doubt going on, because we're actually killing ourselves while we're alive. And we are designed to evolve spiritually. Yeah, we're supposed to rise up. So it's understanding when you're working with someone, are they in a form of being a student, a constant student? And where do I need to go and stretch myself? Wherever that is for me. It might be emotionally, it might be intellectually, it might be physically, it might be more spiritually. I'm staying in this job because it earns me money, but there's no meaning in it for me. And I'm scared to go and do work where there is meaning for me and earn good money from it as well.
Well, it's basically fear. Wherever you got fear, and the only thing that cures fear is action.
Yeah.
Like 2 years ago,
Yeah.
I interviewed Brooke Shields. I know, Thomas, you wouldn't know who that is, but we grew up with whatever that beach thing was that she was in. And she wrote...
Or something?
What's that, mate?
Is that pre-dinosaur age or something?
Pre-milk stain. Pre-milk stain.
Pre-milk stain.
But she's written books on postpartum depression, which is, you know, like with her kids. She was publicly documented it, and I asked her about resilience, and she said, yeah, you have to action your fear. Like she likened it to surfing. She was scared of surfing, so she went out and she got knocked over by the whitewash, and she's going, "Oh, no, surfing's big in your country." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, we've got waves. You don't." Anyway, she goes, "Yeah, I got knocked over. It was like a washing machine." And then the bloke said to her, "Next time, grab sand." And I went, "So he told you to duck dive? Well, you know, duck dive under a wave. You know, we're Australian. We all know that." And she goes, "Yeah, duck dive. Okay, yeah, like a duck." She said, she went down, and then as she came up the other side, she was fine. That fear's gone. She's taken action. But guess what was in front of her? Another wave. But she wasn't scared. So she took action. Action is the only thing that cures fear. And like I was saying before, where you've got the negative emotions, they're fear-based. And if you've got a fear-based emotion, you have to action it. And the longer you leave it unactioned, that's where, if you leave it unactioned, it grows and gets bigger, and it becomes anxiety, it becomes depression, it becomes that sort of stuff. Then if that's left unactioned, it becomes chronic pain, fatigue, disease in your body. So as long as you just have to take action. And one of the blokes, Steve Illard, who's a clinical psychologist and psychiatrist or something like that, neuroscientist, who's a depression researcher, he talks about that. You know, you've just got to, in the olden times, we did it. Like, he studied Papua New Guinean tribes and South American tribes where there's still Aboriginal people, and they have no depression, they have no cancer, they have no, because they don't have that problem. But we do. Our whole system, our endocrine system, kicks in, which I interviewed Dr. Phil last 2 months ago, and he said, yeah, we've got one arousal system. It's the same arousal system as when we're happy, is the same arousal system as when we're scared walking down a dark alley and the hairs in the back of your neck are up. And when you're happy, like I was saying before, that's releasing all the good stuff in your body. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to action that. That's where you want to be. That's when you're moving forward. But when you become stressed, you stop. You know, when you're defensive, you stop. You're not moving. You stop. You're like, well, what have I got to do? And that's when it's got to be like an alarm clock to say to you, hang on, I need to take some form of action. And if you don't know what that action is, then you need to find someone who's got the same problem, coach, and they can show you what they did. Like, we've got the internet. Really, you can just Google whatever you're coming across. It'll come up with answers. But the one thing that you got to be careful of is the medical corporations who drive our health system, both physically and mentally. And doctors and psychologists are amazing people. Like, they're awesome, but they are dictated to with the medication from those industries. Whereas this Stephen Illard has already proven that, like, do they have Zoloft? Have you guys heard of Zoloft, which is an antidepressant?
I've heard of it.
It's pretty common one. Well, they've had 2 lots of tests against Zoloft and against walking for 30 minutes 3 times a week, and they've found that the Zoloft takes 6 weeks to get into your system. Now, the people that they studied that did it, 90% of them had a problem. The ones that they did the walking with, it took 5 days before their system changed, and 90% of them were fine. Like, it's just, but medical corporations can't make money out of that, can they? Yeah. The same way they can't make money out of aspirin. They've known that aspirin was a blood thinner for over 100 years. But they tried to change it until about the 90s because they couldn't make money out of it. Like, they're a business. They don't want you well. They don't want you dead. They won't make money out of you in between. And once you understand that, you know.
Yeah. I think the conversation I think,
You're breaking up there.
John, but
You're breaking up.
Hmm.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
start again. We lost you there for a moment.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily about, you know, like the Brooke Shields story where you fear something and then you go through it, because someone who's suffering with imposter syndrome can take those actions as well. They can take, it's why they're taking those. Are they taking it for healthy pursuits? Are they taking it for unhealthy pursuits?
Yeah. Well,
Are
how
they
effectively will they take it?
Yes. So am I doing it to become better at my craft, or am I doing it to seek approval from other people or avoid rejection from other people because I actually don't feel good enough as a person? So it's what's deeper underlying all that, where imposter syndrome comes from.
So
Alan was talking about.
So fear.
I mean, it's a fear. Yeah, it is a fear, and they're looking through the lens of pessimism, and it's understanding it is a fear, but taking more action doesn't. They take more action thinking it will go away. So that it's not. They don't fear taking action.
Take the right action.
That's it. So again, that's the situation, is really making sure that you understand why you do it and doing it for the right reason. Something you said before, but I've lost that train. It'll come back to me. But Thomas, what are your comments around this? What have you found? Because you work with sportsmen, you work with younger people as well. So I'm looking at the difference in generations, how they look at this as well.
Yeah, I think it's like just looking at it from a referee point of view. There's no room for you to be an imposter at all, because one, you've got 2 teams or 13 people at you plus all the crowd, and so like by all means, I'm not saying that no one is perfect as a referee, but if you want to become a successful referee, then, well, in my case, I've sought out the coaches in the association to make sure that my self debrief of the game, my mental debrief of the game, aligns with what someone of experience has. And so, if my debrief is similar to the report, then I know I'm on the right track, in the sense of I'm not projecting that I'm going to make first grade in 2 weeks, or I'm going to make the NRL in 2 years. And so but in the same time, I'm not stagnant in my progress or growth, because each report is different and it's improving, and I'm doing what I need to do. So in that as well, a lot of people now, I've probably been put on pedestals before from sports people looking up to me, and I try and quickly get off them, because you guys have said it before, like I don't like to be put on pedestals, because I just like to be who I am. And so my goal is to, if I am on a pedestal, pull them people and go, no, like, come with me and we'll do it together. Don't put me on a pedestal. And so I think if I was to say that I'm portraying an image, for me personally, I think the image that I'm trying to portray is, and as corny as it seems, anything's really possible. Like I'm a kid that grew up with nothing, in a sense that, like I lived in a caravan for most of my life. Like I lived in low, not very low economical standards, but low socio-economical living, where we just make ends meet, in a sense. And so, like, there was no room for me to wear the brand names. There's no room for me to do things that would put me on a pedestal within my peers. And so, like, that could be an imposter syndrome right there. I don't know.
I'd see that more as being it's more self-confident in where you are, knowing that everybody else is pretty much the same. It takes away some of the pressure that, you know, I've got to be better because am I as good as other people? When the socioeconomic level is about the same all the way through, then it isn't there. But if you look at some of the Western society where you've got people who are really rich and you've got people who are really poor, because of the difference, that's when there can be a lot more self-imposed expectations of what we think we should be and what we think other people should be are expecting of us. And at the same time, the imposter syndrome, you might be really firm in one area, but in another area, it may exist. It's like I've known with the work I do, and without it boasting or any ego or anything else, I know I'm one of the best people on the planet when it comes to reading people. I know I'm one of the best on the planet being able to help people to understand themselves and understand others. But where mine came in was when I got on stage and started presenting, was this about, you know, me trying to present in a certain way, or was I really delivering to them what that they really wanted to get out of it? Was I delivering everything I possibly could? And so that's when mine slipped. And it was until I was able to look at that, and in my case, it needed to be a self-appraisal because everyone in the world could have said I was fine, but I would again, they're just being nice because my opinion of myself wasn't good enough. I was probably looking at being perfection, as you've said there, Jerome. So I'm setting an impossible level.
Bit of automatic resistance there, Alan.
Yeah. And automatic, not to other people, but to me. If anybody is wondering what John's talking about, John's done one of my courses, so he knows how I teach and the stuff that I do. And yet, hey, and I must be okay with it because I teach people like John and they then throw this stuff back at me and I go, come on, baby. It's fine.
But I think the opposite of being an imposter is being real. So if you keep it real, you're not going to be an imposter. And sometimes you don't know that you're not being real. And if someone else pulls you in the line, then so be it. But you've got to be open to criticism, like Jerome was saying, you know, open to direction. And if, you know, if you're keeping it real, but, you know, if you're not, you might think you are. If someone brings you back on track, then, you know, like, it's like, what do they call it? When you fly a plane and the automatic pilot. The automatic pilot's never on course. It keeps bringing itself back on course. You know, it keeps coming back. And, you know, if you've got your friends and your peers, and I think if stress comes in, the first thing that happens with your stress is you cut yourself off from people and you're ashamed. Like you were saying, you're an imposter. You're not being the person you need to be. So as long as you're on top of your mental health, as long as you're on top of your feelings, you know, and if you make a mistake, cool, made a mistake, good, learn from it, change. You know,
no, John, that's a really good point there, buddy. It's also when you're looking at a business owner or elite athlete, it's how quickly they can get back in the game after they've made a mistake, and
that's resilience.
If self-doubt really, yeah, but it's also having strategies to get back in the game. Yeah, resilient and having your teammates. So the longer it takes to get back in the game, and you know, even the top players at some point lose confidence, whether it's for an injury, loss of form, change of team, change of environment, change of coach. There's many dynamics that are going on with confidence, and it's not just one thing. So it's understanding about how quickly they can get back in the game and get back in flow state with what they're doing. One of the things is when with imposter syndrome is when you're comparing the worst of you with the best of someone else, and the best of someone else with the worst of you, and so
I missed
you're creating an imbalance.
Sorry, Jerome, I missed it. It cut out there. I missed what you were saying.
One of the signs of imposter syndrome is when you're comparing the worst of you with the best of someone else. So one of the things you do is get you, when you move into a form of peak performance, is you can get sustained flow state more often on a daily basis. And one of those things is you only start to compare yourself to your previous performance, not to someone else. So I run in masters 100 and 200 meters, and I've got state championships coming up in a couple of weeks. A lot of the guys will go, oh, you know, I want to beat him, or I hope he's not turning up, because if he turns up, my journey is I want to get sub 12. So I look at each training session in the 100 meters on how I can get closer to that. And that's all I'm focused on, because I can block everything out and create my training program, my nutrition, everything around getting sub 12, because all I'm focused on is becoming the best version of myself to get there.
Man, I'm happy with a good 30-second 100 meters, mate.
I know. I do love the sport. But what I'm saying is when you go in...
My car goes much faster than that.
Can I borrow it on the 8th of February? So what I'm saying is, once you stop comparing yourself to other people and focus just on your journey and go micro steps, pigeon steps on how I can improve physically, psychologically, and craft-wise, you get into this more flow state of who you can become. And then you look 12 months down the road and you see how far you've come in those 3 areas. And it's amazing how we take away expectations, focus on the processes, how far you've come in life financially, relationship-wise, environmentally-wise, not because you've focused on those things, because you've just improved as a person in those 3 areas.
Yeah.
And people are attracted to things that are working well, that are reliable, that are trustworthy. But we have to become that ourselves first within ourselves.
So
when it's building a business or anything like that. Yeah, go on, Alan.
So from what you were saying and also what John's been saying, it's the process, it's the journey that you're taking. And while you're always moving forward, there shouldn't be an imposter syndrome because you know that you're getting better. You're focusing on the process. You're not focusing on the outcome, which is where people are trying to be perfectionists and therefore not getting there. So you ask yourself why you've got the imposter syndrome in the first place. Is it because of what other people are saying and how you're gauging all of that? Therefore, it's around lack of self-resilience and low self-esteem. Because I know some people say, 1,000 people have told me I'm great. At the moment, one person tells them they're not. They then plummet. And they negate everything that all the others have said and just go with that one person. So there's that resilience as well. There's so many, as you said as well, Jerome, the things that will trigger the imposter syndrome are many of them varied. For each person, they're going to be different.
One of those, Alan, is when you're working with a young athlete and things are coming easy for them. They're very gifted in whether it's cricket, soccer, tennis, or business owners. They've got good attributes in those areas. They've got good characteristics that are ahead of the game compared to other people around them. But what happens is, because it's come easy to them, they don't believe they've earned it. And because they don't believe they've earned it, they feel like an imposter. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so it's just one of the complex situations of imposter syndrome. The moment you don't think you've earned something, you will feel like a fraud.
That's it. So you've got to be.
And they've done research. And you're being applauded for it. You know, that's why lottery winners struggle. People that have won the lottery really, really struggle. They're millionaires. They've got all this, and they're around people that have earned it, but they haven't earned it. They struggle.
Yeah, they waste it. I'm losing
you. No, Jerome, we're losing you again. You're locking up, even your picture's frozen. There's been some really good facial expressions, which I'll probably take out of this later on. There was one that looked a bit like a meerkat there before, so I'm going to certainly save that one. You've got to love technology.
Am I back?
Yeah, got you back now.
Yeah.
So they've done research with lottery winners and how lottery winners, because they really didn't earn it, felt uncomfortable around other millionaires that did earn it.
And wasted.
Because there's a thing in psychology, it's called conditioning for your positioning. And if you haven't conditioned yourself for that position, you really struggle to feel part of it. If you haven't gone through the layers to get there. And so there's many complex things. So the greatest thing I can say is always earn anything you applaud. Make sure you've earned it first. And secondly, talk to people that have had a lot of success, and you'll find that they had self-doubt along the way as well. And that will reassure you in the conversations.
I think earning it, but more importantly, owning it.
Yeah,
Own
yeah.
the fact that you've
Yeah.
done it.
Well, when you earn
You
it,
know?
then you know you can
Yeah,
own it.
if you don't earn it, you can't own it.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
it's difficult. It's difficult. And
Well, I'll say like this: if I've paid for the ticket to win the lottery, I'll own it.
You deserve it. That's it.
right.
Absolutely.
yeah, no,
hearing
you do
I'm
deserve
hearing
it.
you, brother.
Look, I'll rock up.
Yeah,
I'll spend a couple of dollars. I'll get some nice suits, you know, and I'll rock up in a nice car, and I'll
And you get a razor for that.
and I'll
Lovely.
be there.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
fair enough. Like,
and I reckon you grow a bigger moustache.
well, come on.
Come on.
It's a fine line between this section and whatever they have. Whether it's
How much manure did you have to use to grow that?
oh mate, I once was a millionaire, but now I'm not. So I've had to own that one.
As you can see by the conversations we have to everybody who's listening, it's all we talk about serious things, but at the end of the day, it's also we talk about owning stuff and everything else. But at the same time, we've got to be able to laugh, and that's one of the things. And know that if you're feeling like an imposter, sometimes it's a good thing to sit back and have a bit of a laugh about it. But as both Jerome and John have been saying as well, go and talk to people who have already been through the stuff. Ask somebody who's really up there and go, tell us about, was it smooth sailing for you? And I guarantee if it wasn't, they're going to be happy to tell you it wasn't. And that will then know, hey, I'm not the only person. But now I can say to that person, okay, well, what did you do to get there? How did you get through that? And then take that, and then you can put that in place, and then you can, as you said, you can, John, you can own it. And then you realise that, hey, this is a natural progression. Again, remember, if you're really focused on the people around you who you're trying to help, you're going to feel imposter syndrome at some stage, because there'll more than likely there's going to be some self-doubt, especially if you're a perfectionist. Am I there yet? Well, it's a case of, it shouldn't be, we get that from the kids in the back of the car, are we there yet? We shouldn't be using the same, the noise the crap out of us as parents in the front seat. So we shouldn't be doing that to ourselves. It's like the little voice in the back of the head just going, are we there yet? Well, enjoy the journey and make sure that as we're doing the journey, we're progressing and getting further and further along, closer to our destination. If we get to the destination in life, well, that's a coffin. So we don't want to get to that. We want to keep enjoy the journey and get as much into that as we possibly can. So, and at the same time,
you always got to reset the goal.
That's it. And ask ourselves along the way, if I'm feeling like an imposter, am I feeling like an imposter in all areas, or what particular area? If that's a particular area, go and talk to somebody who works in that area and ask them, have they ever felt that way? Because I guarantee anybody who's achieved and got to that level, they're really happy to share that journey and tell you about it.
And the other things to look out for, are you achieving goals because they're in line with someone else's values, parents, whatever, peers, or are you achieving goals because they're aligned with your values? And when they're aligned with your values, you're less likely to have imposter syndrome. You're more likely to have it if you're achieving goals because they're aligned to someone else's values. And that's, a lot of people identify their success by achieving other people's values. And you see
I can really relate to that, because that was exactly my thing, where I told you I had a bit of a bad upbringing and I wanted to get recognition, so I became the best at whatever I still have, well, until about 3 years ago, the under 16s 800 meter record at school. Always the athlete, what do you call it, the school athlete of age group, whatever. Cross country, I was captain of the soccer, captain of the football, bloody did martial arts and all that, but I was doing it to get recognised by my parents, which wasn't happening. And then once I got to an age where I went, you know what, I don't want this anymore. I'm not doing this for me. And so I can really relate to what you're saying. That's 100% right. But you've also got to give them recognition. You've also got to give probably a bit of gratitude and a bit of forgiveness, because because you wouldn't have achieved that if you didn't have that. So it's for me, it's more about as I said before, ownership, but being aware. And when you evolve, when you grow emotionally, and a lot of people start off and have the goal, as a psychologist told me, told me a long time ago, Roger Peters, who you know,
Yep.
Alan, is the goal in life is to outgrow your parents emotionally. You know, the goal of society is to outgrow your parents emotionally, and that's how we evolve. And when they age, they, you know, like once you hit your 60s and 70s, your emotional growth goes backwards a bit. You know, whereas, and that's just natural. You know, so in effect, we're always going to outgrow them, and I think it's more about being aware that that process is happening.
Yeah.
Whereas you don't, a lot of people don't identify with it. They sort of sit there and go, hang on, they're my parent. Well, once you're an adult, you don't need the parent to be the parent. You know, they've done their job. They've got you to that point. And you've got to acknowledge them for, especially their flaws. It's usually the flaws as a parent that is your success as a person.
That's
you know, that's fueled your success.
Yeah.
So,
it's true, John. Working with a lot of men, though, I've realised that a lot, especially if they're very strong father figures, that they haven't outgrown their father because they hold them into high esteem.
Yeah,
but that's them. That's what they've got to learn.
It comes back to the person.
Yeah,
and so
that comes back to their.
Yeah, no, and so when you said emotionally outgrow your parents, but if that doesn't take a lot of work to emotionally outgrow your parents, you're missing out on still a lot of growth. So one of the things I say to all my clients is always work on becoming the best version of you because you're still comparing yourself to someone else. Yeah. So I know where that psychologist is coming from, but you're still comparing yourself to your parents and trying to outgrow them emotionally, even though it's non-conscious. It's always how do I become better today than I was yesterday, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically? Yeah. If I'm doing that and focusing on my processes in a healthy way, I have because success for whatever it is for the individual is a science. It's not an art.
Yeah, well, we don't know that.
Do you know what when I started at the thing, one of the things that propels you forward for that is, what am I grateful for today? Who do I love? Who loves me? What am I excited about today?
Yeah.
That propels you in that direction. And people don't teach that.
Yeah, I did. It is so true, but it's also being grateful, but keeping that gratitude. So for instance, I will get up and I'll go, I am grateful for a fit, healthy body. That means I'm going to go and exercise to maintain it, so I can constantly say, be grateful and show self-respect to it.
But they're words. They're words. What I'm saying is feel it. You've got to feel it.
Feel it, but I turn it into actions. Okay. Yeah, so if I say I'm grateful for the clients I've got in my life that's allowing me to have meaning in my life, how can I...
Hang on, is that a true statement?
No, I'm giving examples here. How can I then go and learn and become the better version of me to help them? So I believe in being a role model, not necessarily a teacher.
Yeah, well,
if I'm going to tell you to do something,
walk the walk.
I make sure I'm doing it as well.
Yeah. So it's like being a parent. Our job is we're not carpenters, we're not sculptors. We don't turn our children into a version of what we think they should be. We are gardeners. Our job is to nurture them so they can be the best version that they can be. If they don't have to live up to our standard, they can then focus on being the best version of themselves. And that way they grow. And as parents, we don't have children who are competing with us. So we don't have the child who's waiting for us to fall off the perch before they have an identity.
Yeah.
So in that process, we're doing the right thing as a parent, and the child is focusing on their own life. I've got 3 sons. They're chalk, cheese, and whatever you call the third version. They're all completely different to each other. But they have my love and respect because of the men they've become, because they've been focusing on how do I become the best version of myself, and that's what each of them have done. Whereas I look at it and go, well, thank you. You weren't the same as me. You know, you're living your own life, and my job is to do that. At the same time, I will dispute the issue of between 60 and 70, John, because my attitude to life is the most important.
50 or 60? Should I go lower?
You're a so-and-so. It's a case of with age. Well, my attitude to it is the most important thing I'll ever learn is the next thing I learn after I think I know everything, which goes back to what you were both saying about continually growing and looking at expanding, not looking at what I'm there, but this is where I could be. This is where do I go to next? What's my next level of growth? And so doing that, you've got that side as well. Now, Thomas, you were going to say something before and you haven't had a chance. So what was that?
It was just when Jerome was talking about I'm thankful for a healthy body, and so he goes and exercises. Well, I'm out. See you later.
That's you might be grateful for something else. So this is
it. Everyone's different.
It's how I say it. If I'm grateful for something, how do I look after it? How do I take care of it? How do I show that I'm grateful for it? If I'm grateful for my partner Sue, how do I show that I care for her?
Yeah.
How do I demonstrate that gratitude, not just say it? How do I turn it into a behavior? And so it magnifies that gratitude even more. What I mean by role model is, I'll give you an example, guys, is my son was doing his at university in England, and he was doing biomedicine. Halfway through it, he rang up on Skype because we were living in Australia, and he said, Mum, Dad, you probably don't want to hear this, but I want to quit. I've had enough. I don't want to do it. And my partner then was going, oh, son, but you really wanted to do it. Maybe it's just a phase you're going through. And I sat there and I said, son, this is your life. This is your choice. And one of the things in psychology it's assessing something, because I think kids should have their own bruises. They should
that's how you learn.
Their own bruises,
Just because you get a degree doesn't mean you're going to have a great life. Yeah, it doesn't mean you're going to have a great life. And so I went away, knowing what I know now, I went away and I said, where am I not completing things in my life? And I wrote down a list of things I started and I didn't complete. And I wrote them down and I went away and completed them. A month later, because I really believe in the ripple effect, a month later, my son rang up and said, I've changed my mind. I want to finish this. Whether it was a coincidence, whether it was not, it was the reflection of my external world telling me, where am I not starting, mate? So if I was going to tell him to finish something, where was I not finishing things that I started in the first place? And so that's what I mean about, I never had the right to sit there and say, son, you've got to see this out because it's going to benefit you, when I would have, because that's being a hypocrite when I'm not finishing things myself.
But it's also taking the role of being the carpenter or the sculptor, telling your son what he has to do, what he should be.
I have no right to tell them what I have to do, but I have the responsibility of being a good role model. How can I tell my children to be fit and healthy if I am not exercising and eating well myself? I just can't pass that message on. There's no authenticity in it. And then I'm going to actually claim that I love them and it's for their own good when it's not good enough for me.
Yeah, well, when you're telling them what to do, you're coming from that carpenter or sculptor's mode. You're trying to guide, you're getting them to live your life.
Yeah.
That's why, as I said, as a gardener, you're nurturing the ground, you're watering, etc., and they grow into the best version of themselves. But when you talked about the energy of what you're doing and how that impacts on him, that's probably a great subject for another panel discussion, because I think that can get into a very long one as well, talking about energies. But to finish off, because we started late, but I know that we're going over time, to wrap this up, first of all, going around in the group, Jerome, what advice or what comments would you like to finish off with to the group, and then John, and then Thomas, if you can give yours as well.
I think anyone who is suffering with severe low self-worth or self-doubt, they're either overworking or they're not taking action because of that imposter syndrome. I think one of the things they should do is come on and listen to these videos and hear that many people on here have been successful, and it hasn't been an easy journey. As you say, some people have had sexual abuse, some, emotional violence at home from parents. It hasn't been an easy road, but somehow we got here. And those self-doubts can go away because you hear other people moving through their pain and their barriers, and they're successful in their life. And the more they hear that, the more they won't feel left. They're not on their own going through this. And I think what you're doing, Alan, is beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you, John.
yeah, I suppose on the topic we've been speaking about, I think the most important thing is just to keep it real. And if you can't, you need some people around you to keep it real or help you keep it real. You know, don't ostracize yourself. And if you're going through a struggle, someone else has been through more. So, you know, and like we've got access to the internet. You can find it out. Like if you've got a problem, put your hand up, say I've got a problem, and look for people who have done it. Don't take advice from people who haven't done it. You know, if you want to be a 100-metre sprinter, as Jerome was saying, you don't go and ask someone who's I don't know, a soccer coach or a high jump coach how to become a 100-metre champion, because they can teach you how to be a soccer champion or a high jump champion. So ask the right people, get the right results. That's
it. As you said, there's the internet, and there's also so many people have been on here, over 80 people we've had one-on-one chats with, and I think this is about the 47th panel discussion we've had. So there's hundreds of hours of content just there again as well. Thomas?
Yeah, I think to bring it home is, for me, and what I've done in my life is I'm grateful for a set of eyes that sees and a mind that interprets things quite well. And so from that, I just see what I don't want and make a decision to get what I really want. Like, I think, yeah, like that's just how I've done it. Like my dad, he was very himself. He was very closed. He was very excluded. He was very tough. And so there's things that I'm like, well, I don't want to be exclusive. I want to be open to everyone, or as many people as possible. But I also want to be compassionate. I want to be kind-hearted, and I want to be able to, like, just the other day, a friend of mine sent me like a short story of her life, but she was portraying it in someone else, and I'm like, wow, like one, thank you for sending it to me to get my opinion, and two, like I feel so sorry for you for what you've just been through. Like, so that's what, like, I've made a decision to be that person for someone else, and that's what I want. See, whereas I'm not the guy that wants to be angry or abusive or something like that. So I think with the internet and social media and everything that portrays images of what we should be, just make a decision. Oh, I don't want to be like that. I want to be like that. Like, and then, as John said, just keep it real. If you want to look hella swag like Steve Harvey, you do you, boo. You know, there's no right or wrong way to or right or wrong person to be, in a sense. Like just be you. Like, there's so many copycats out there, or the same people out there. Like, you are unique yourself. Like, just because you've gone through some shit in life doesn't mean that you're not unique. You are unique. You were put on this planet to be who you are, not anyone else. So don't let that be hidden by a mask or an imposter or something that you think you should be. So
okay, beautiful. That's really a good point to finish up on. So again, Jerome, John, and Thomas, thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing. And to everybody else who's been listening in, I hope you got a lot out of it. And again, if you resonate with any of the men here, get in touch and have a chat offline as well. You know, allow yourself to do yourself a favour and ask and reach out to people if you're looking for some help, because that's what we're all here for. This is a community that's growing together to not only help ourselves when we talk, we're working on our own stuff, but we're also sharing with others. And we're all here to help each other. So again, thanks guys, and we'll see everybody on the next Campfire, either panel discussion or one-on-one. Catch you all later.
See you later. Bye.